Not really. I mean, sniffly yesterday, and I thought, well, it's strange because I'm feeling good, but I need a good night's sleep. So why don't I just take some cold medicine when I don't need it? I don't need the cold medicine. I'm fine. But I had some extra cold medicine. I took it. The, I won't name names. It comes a little white tablet. You put it in water and it bubbles up. And for a while, you think it's champagne. For a while, I said, "Wow, we're festive tonight." And I drink it down. It doesn't take very long for it to get groggy. I'll get out, as they say. I'm asleep, and I thought, no, I'll get up early to do, what I do, meditate, all that stuff. The snooze alarm, I must have hit the snooze alarm about like 3 dozen times, and I couldn't get up. This is like when you don't take medicine, don't use it because it knocks you out. I'm just recovering now. I'm just recovering from the cold medicine I didn't really need, or they call it severe cold and flu or whatever. And I'm also vaccinated. So maybe what I'm seeing is, the flu vaccine work. And so it shows a little bit that you're fighting it off, but it's working. And I was reacting by saying, well, I'm going to help it. I'm going to take cold. No, do not take cold. If you take the cold medicine, you'll just get drowsy and it'll put you to sleep. Anyway, I'm just waking up. And when you take cold medicine, when you need it, sometimes it doesn't work, right? Sometimes you got to take it every 4 hours because it's not working. So anyway, this has worked. I am now just waking up. Welcome to the program. It's Emil Guillermo, Emil Amok to you, Emil Amok's Takeout. Oh, and we're here live at 2 p.m. Pacific, and now we're still in the extra time. We're still in the pre-show. We're still in the but is this thing on? No, we're still in that period because it's only 1:57 Pacific. So let me give out my long drawn out rap for tonight. If you're joining me now, you should know that at 7:00 tonight, I will be at the Berkeley Repertory Theater, 3201 Adeline Street in Berkeley, right there, not Oakland, it's Berkeley. Oh, am I in Berkeley? No, am I in Oakland? I'm in Berkeley, 3201 Adeline Street, the Black Repertory Theater Group. They're doing a virtual reading, a videoed of Conductor, Ishmael Reed's new play. Ishmael, noted playwright, author, MacArthur genius. I mean, he is a true inspiration, a friend of mine. He cast me in a very small part. But he invited me to come to the live videoed reading to see a video, but I'll be there for a Q&A. Ishmael, his wife Carla Blank, the director. I will be there. Allison Collins, I believe, will be on the panel. And you can ask questions about Ishmael Reed's The Conductor. What is The Conductor about? Well, you'll recall. Of course I recall. Well, voters recall. The San Francisco School Board recall of 3 board members, one of whom is Allison Collins, and she's going to be there tonight. Well, he was inspired to write The Conductor, which is a kind of mashup of history and his view about what's happening now in the woke politics of American school boards across the country. I mean, this is happening not just in San Francisco, but it's noteworthy because the Washington Post just did a story today about a new study that shows most of these battles are taking place in what they call purple areas, where there's a real mix of Democrat, Republican, conservative, liberal, mix, purple. It's not supposed to be in bluish electorates or areas. And I would say San Francisco is fairly blue, right? I mean, in San Francisco, they're so blue. Republicans are just people who are less blue. I mean, that's the state of politics. But that really is what the Washington Post reported. It was a University of California Riverside survey. It's in the paper today, saying that most of these battles about over, what to teach and, how sensitive to be, they're taking place in these purpley districts. And this was a survey of principals in about 700 school districts schools around the country. And it's interesting. And this is what made San Francisco so newsworthy, because it's blue, and you had 3 board members who wanted to do things right, to make some corrections, and you had a very conservative element of Asian Americans who wanted nothing but, they wanted the traditions. They wanted just service in terms of education. It caused a split, and really what comes out is it's not a matter of how, these woke school board members were. It's how the electorate got so organized to throw out people who are trying to do some good. Now, I don't agree with them on everything, but I do think that kind of diversity in the school board, trying to do some things, not just for students, but also for how the school board is in charge of things like, do we rename some schools if they're named for racists? Do we rename, or they weren't even getting to the curriculum battle yet. They were still at, renaming schools and doing things like taking down murals, which was very controversial. And the big issue was Lowell High School. And I think even there, I don't actually agree totally with the 3 school board members who wanted to make Lowell open. But anyway, that's what makes life interesting, right? Anyway, those school board members were called. It inspired Ishmael Reed's the conductor, his play, which really gives you all the history they don't give you in school. That's one of the beauties about Ishmael Reed's play. All the things that you think people should know, they don't know. And it's loaded with history, but it's not a lecture. It's more of a revelation about how much is left out of public education. Public education. That's what we're talking about. And the historical record. So the conductor, Ishmael Reed's play, a virtual reading tonight. It will be videoed, but I will be there live with Ishmael and Carla Blank and other members of the panel. As I mentioned, Allison Collins is going to be there. I've never met her, except online. And it should be not just an interesting videoed reading of the play, but it should be an interesting conversation. 7 o'clock tonight, Thursday night, December 1st, at the Black Repertory Theater Group, 3201 Adeline Street in Berkeley. If you want to attend, tickets are $17, and the phone number is 510-652-2120. 510-652-2120. Now, if you're in New York and you say, "Oh, Emil, I'm not going to fly there. Sorry, can't make it." Maybe if I made I catch a lift to LaGuardia. No. Look, you can catch the videoed reading. They're showing that 7 p.m. Pacific tonight, also Friday at 7 p.m., Saturday at 7 p.m., and Sunday at 3 p.m. Pacific time. And that'll be streamed, recorded live, and you can get tickets for that. But the live Q&A with Ishmael, myself, Carla Blank, the, uh, the director, Allison Collins, former school board member, and I believe some other people will be there. That's only for the live audience. Thursday, December 1st only, tonight only. So if you're interested in that, 7 p.m. Pacific, Black Repertory Theater Group, 3201 Adeline Street in Berkeley. If you're interested in just catching the videoed reading online tonight and subsequent days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, ticket $17. Call the box office at the Black Repertory Theater Group, 510-652-2120. It's for the videoed reading of The Conductor, Ishmael Reed. But if you possibly can, be there tonight at the Black Rep Theater, 3201 Adeline Street, 7 p.m. Thursday night, December 1st. I'll be there. Ishmael will be there. Carla, the director. And we should have an interesting discussion, don't you think? I mean, it's going to be. It's the conductor. It's Ishmael Reed's Conductor. And so here we are. Where are we? Where are we? Well, welcome to the show again. We begin at 2 p.m. Pacific. It's now 2:06, and if you're seeing us live, this is the show. We look at the news, gather the news, make a comment. It's traditional news talk. Although you won't find this kind of show on traditional networks, because as I said, the bigger your audience, the less you can say. The smaller your audience, the more you can say, and the more you'll hear things that you won't hear anywhere else. So that's the premise of this show. I call it the micro talk show of the AAPI and the AAXs, the Asian American Pacific Islanders, or the AAXs, X, put in your ethnicity group. And if you're none of those, well, you're just an ALL. All the rest of you, you're all welcome. Welcome to the program, Emil Amok's Takeout. So we talked about the public schools. The public schools are the battleground. And as I said, it's happening not just in places where it's polarized left, right, or, woke, unwoke. It's really happening much more in the purpley, where it's really closely divided. Well, figure that sort of tends the reason, right? I mean, because in places where it's so one way or the other, then there's a clear dominant force. There's no real, the polarization is heavy weighted one way. But when it's purple and there the polarization is almost equal. And then you're going to see what loggerheads, what kind of results you get when people are at loggerheads or butting up against each other. So, like I said, a Washington Post article saying that in a survey of over 600 principals, that this was happening around the country. And that's why San Francisco was interesting, because a small minority, a relatively small minority, well, you can't say it's a small minority. Asian Americans are 30% of San Francisco. But they were able to drive the recall effort and present a coalition of people against these 3 school board members. Anyway, that's local politics right now. Public schools. Of course, the big political story remains Georgia, the Senate runoff. And if you go to my ALDEF column, Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, you'll see what I wrote there. I mean, it's kind of interesting because I'm writing about Georgia, but I'm also writing about Oakland, because we're having a runoff for one reason in Georgia, and that's because no one got 50% of the vote. But Georgia doesn't do what they call ranked choice voting, and Oakland does do ranked choice voting, which is I mean, people who go around saying we're number one. Well, in Oakland, you can go around saying we're number two, and that's good enough. Now, I don't want to be too negative about ranked choice, but we'll get to that in a second. The big story, though, is the Senate runoff in Georgia. And the new mantra is on Tuesday, you just gotta vote. GOTA. Gotta, that's in get out the Asian vote, at least in Georgia. And if you're not Asian, you know someone in Georgia, you got to remind them that the early voting ends on Friday. And as I speak now, the latest count is 1.1 million Georgians have already voted early. That's a lot. But some people may stay home. 1.1 million already have voted. Once the voting ends, the early voting, you're just going to have to brave whatever happens on Tuesday on election day. But this really matters for everyone around the country. So if you are 3,000 miles away in Oakland or in LA, or if you're in Hawaii and you got friends in Oakland or Georgia, my daughter lived in Georgia for a while. You got to vote. You got to say, get out there. You got to vote. If you care about our country's laws and policies, we're talking about same-sex marriage, interracial marriage, which is an issue this week. But fortunately, some Republicans came over and they made it a bipartisan bill. But issues of abortion, DACA, immigration, everything. If you care about anything like that, you got to care about the Georgia vote. If the incumbent senator Raphael Warnock wins, it gives Democrats 51 members, a clear majority in the U.S. Senate. Vice President Kamala Harris wouldn't be needed to break a tie. She can continue napping or doing whatever she does. Nice woman, but she wouldn't be needed to break the tie. She can do other things. But that means on every controversial issue, Democrats could more easily get things done. It's the power and control of a real majority. And albeit it's just 51. And if they break ranks, then, the ideal sense of power and control gone. But on some things that should be slam dunks, 51 members makes a difference. That's why Senator Raphael Warnock is a choice by many Democrats. And this year, Asian Americans can make it happen. Now, in the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund exit poll that was taken November 8th, the midterms, right? Asian Americans came out in full support for the Democratic candidate, 60.1% to 33.3%. That has to hold up in the runoff for Democrats to have an edge in the legislative process. And the politicos know that. So we have ad spending now that's already through the roof. At the start of this week, the booked ad spending from November 9th to December 6th was nearly $48 million, with more money yet to come in the final days. This is according to reports. This is just a runoff, right? We're talking 48 million and more's coming. Some of that money is directed at Asian Americans. There are about 133,000 AAPI voters in Georgia. Believe that. I mean, I went to Georgia a few years ago. They brought me to a Korean church north of the city. Man, it was packed. This was the Korean churches, right? This is their community. It was a pleasure to be part of a program there. And that was just a couple years ago. And since then, it's only gotten bigger. So we're talking about 133,000 AAPI voters. Huge growth burst within just the last few years, based on reported estimates. And now the Warnock campaign has seen it as the sign of the times. They bought ads translated into Vietnamese, Mandarin, and Korean. So here's a statement from the Warnock campaign. Meredith Brasher said AAPI Georgians play a critical role in our communities and in our elections. That's why Reverend Warnock has made it a priority to deliver for Georgia's AAPI community by lowering healthcare costs, protecting voting rights, and supporting AAPI-owned small businesses. You hit all the buttons. And those ads apparently are online. They're not, I mean, this is the new world of media where you can specifically target people online on streaming services, as mid-roll ads, not necessarily on television, not necessarily on, traditional on-air broadcast television. They're targeting AAPI voters. That's a significant thing, really. And, everyone is focused on next Tuesday, getting out the vote. President Obama out there again to make sure that Georgia doesn't forget to vote. I mean, that's the real fear, that people are going to forget to vote. If you're a Republican, though, the real fear is that there aren't enough nose pins to allow decent Republicans to vote for Walker. I'm sorry, I can't vote. Don't have a nose pin. This is a nose pin vote, where you got to pin your nose because the candidate is so. I mean, when Dave Chappelle calls Herschel Walker observably stupid, and everyone laughs, and this is Georgia's referendum on how big a laughingstock do you want to be, Georgia? And it's telling, right? Your choice, you're a Republican, and you got someone like Reverend Warnock, who some people consider extremely woke. Well, extremely woke, he's just a Baptist minister at, or I don't know the correct denomination, but it's Ebenezer, right? He's at Ebenezer. He's at MLK's church. I went there. I bought a yellow yo-yo. You can go to the gift shop at Ebenezer Baptist and buy a yo-yo. I did. It's somewhere in my closet here. But just imagine you're a Republican going into the ballot, into the voting booth, and you're looking at Walker's name as a Republican, and Walker is the documented philanderer, abortion hypocrite, Texas resident who wants to represent Georgia. And you, as a Republican, what do? Do you vote for that guy? You got to say, I need an extra nose clip. I need a couple of nose clips. Please help me. I need a nose clip to vote for Herschel Walker. No. Now, it doesn't help when that scenario is repeated essentially by the current lieutenant governor of Georgia, Jeff Duncan, a Republican, right? He couldn't vote for Walker. He was on CNN this morning. He says, I was one of those folks in line, spent an hour waiting, and it was the most disappointing ballot I've ever stared at in my life since I started voting. This is Duncan. You know the guy. He looks like a, fairly decent guy. His eyebrows are a little too close together. I mean, that doesn't mean I don't trust him. I mean, he's a Republican. But then he concluded, I had two candidates. I just couldn't find anything that made sense for me to put my vote behind. And so I walked out of that ballot box showing up to vote, but not voting for either of them. That was Republican Lieutenant Governor. He's in the office now, Jeff Duncan, saying he couldn't vote for Herschel Walker. Pass that man a nose clip. No, he couldn't do it. Now, one can't rely on these sensible Republicans to just go in the ballot box after waiting an hour and then walking out saying, can't do it, not going to do it. But there will be those people out there passing out extra nose clips, right? So that's one problem. You got to go out there to vote and don't bring any extra nose clips. Just vote your conscience. You got the reverend or the philanderer. I think it's a pretty clear-cut decision, a pretty clear-cut choice. The midterm results from November 8th showed that Warnock, I mean, here's the reason why we got this. Why you have to go through this runoff. Because Warnock had 49.44% of the vote, while the legendary football star and Trump supporter Walker had 48.49%. That is narrow, thin margin, right? And you got to have 50% to win, right? 50.01 to win. You got to have a majority. Now, Libertarian Chase Oliver had 2.07% of the vote. This is all taken from the Secretary of State of Georgia. No one had a majority. And this is where ranked choice voting, or RCV, would have been interesting. Who would the Libertarian Oliver's voters, who would they have voted for with their number 2 vote? I mean, do you think they would have voted for Walker? Somehow, I don't know, Luke, does libertarian include the freedom to say stupid things? Would a second place ballot on a Oliver voter's ballot, would the second place name be Warnock? I think Warnock is smarter, better, but would the libertarians go for Warnock? But Georgia lawmakers didn't pass ranked choice voting, RCV, or they didn't, they haven't made it part of the electoral process because they don't mind taking the time to do it right, because it is right. Oliver, the libertarian, was a spoiler. And, he got 2% of the vote, but he mucked up things. The only answer is a head-to-head battle. And that's what we got now. Now, I think it's worth talking about RCV, or ranked choice voting, because it is interesting and it works in some places. I mean, ever since it's been used in elections around the country, I've been mixed on ranked choice, RCV, and how, how can I really be critical of it when it actually has gotten Asian Americans elected, right? And we want to see more Asian Americans elected. The most recent one is the new mayor of Oakland, California, Oakland City Council member Sheng Tao. She's a 37-year-old Asian American Hmong woman who took advantage of ranked choice voting to win. I mean, by taking advantage, I don't mean in a negative way. I just mean that were it not for ranked choice voting, there'd be another election. I mean, there were 10 people running for mayor, but maybe only half were truly serious. And Dow won not because she was the first choice, but because she was the people's second choice. I mean, really, does anyone in America really take pride in saying, we're number 2? We're number 2. Only when it means you win. And that's ranked choice voting. But what if Tao were in a head-to-head battle with her fellow Oakland City Council member, Lauren Taylor, an African-American, good guy. A lot of people seem to like him. But not for number 1, but not for number 2. Now, if democracy is a rule by majority, why do we settle for a mere plurality? And I guess it all depends on whose money you're spending. Because RCV in Oakland is the rule. It's an electoral device that solves a problem when no one wins a majority. With RCV, ranked choice voting, Oakland voters mark their ballots, ranking the 10 mayoral candidates, and when no one won a majority, what I call the other election began automatically. When candidate Tyron Jordan was eliminated, his voters named Taylor, Tyron named Taylor, Lauren Taylor. Second, 112 votes, rather than Tao, who got 96 votes. That gave Taylor a lead of 1,645 votes. But that wasn't enough to win. There were other candidates to be eliminated. As each of the remaining candidates was eliminated, 9 rounds total, whoever was named number 2 picked up those votes. By round 7, Lauren Taylor, was ahead by 3,567 votes. It still wasn't over. You have to go through the other candidates and see who their number 2s were. And then a funny thing happened when it was just the top 4. Taylor, Tao, veteran Politico Ignacio de la Fuente, and ACLU attorney Elisa Victory. In round 8, Victory was eliminated, and Tao was named second choice among 8,425 Victory voters. 8,425! Second. That's huge. Taylor was named second choice by just 2,161 voters, but the difference was enough to put Tao in the lead by 2,677 votes over Taylor. After trailing all that time, Taylor was in the lead. Tao catapults. She gets 8,420, a massive amount of second place votes. She was number 2 after essentially being number 3 all that time. So really, Tao lost the number 2 vote in all of the top 7, among the top 7 serious candidates, except for that landslide she had among the Victory voters. Elisa Victory, she was named second on 4th place finisher Victory's ballot. And that was enough. And that's how a democracy works when no one wants to spend the money to figure out a majority in a 1-to-1 runoff battle. I know a lot of people like ranked choice voting. Oakland saved money, but did it get the real vote of the people? Who would have won if it had been a head-to-head vote? Taylor, Tao, straight up. We'll never know, because no one wanted to pay for that election. As I said, I've gone through back and forth on RCV since its inception. There are good things about it, beyond the savings. It encourages new faces to run and form coalitions. You get a buddy system when you campaign so that, hey, look, I want them to vote for me, but I'll gladly be your number 2. It encourages people to vote you as number 2. Number 1 is tough. Just make me number 2. And if you get a number 2 vote, you can be number 1. But that definitely changes the game, right? Possibly for the better. Look, you think about RCV, it can be a positive and enabling or enabler, right? Diverse participation, enabled, disenfranchised, get representation. Oakland also uses district elections versus citywide elections, especially for the council. But there are times when I begin to have doubts about RCV. And because Lauren Taylor, an African-American councilman, relative political neophyte, just like Tao, was seen as a good choice among many. But as I said, an election game under RCV rules is a different game. So here's the upshot. It's good that Sheng Tao has a good story. She made history. She's the first Hmong elected mayor of a major U.S. city. Most importantly, she's got a good heart. Homeless, 15 years. She's now a renter in Oakland, raising a family. She wants to solve crime issues and make Oakland safer. She wants to bring together a divided city. RCV proves she has a coalition of support to make that happen. She was the best number 2. Now we got to see if she can be the people's number one. But that's a local election, right? It's an election, a local one, where the stakes aren't exactly as high as they are in Georgia. And there, we've got this head-to-head matchup. Really, the only way to decide a winner. This is the real cost of democracy. And both parties are spending millions of dollars because a shortcut won't do. But keep in mind, democracy only wins on Tuesday if everyone, especially AAPIs in Georgia, turn out to vote. And that's why if you've got relatives or friends in Georgia, call them up, encourage them. I say, GOTA, you got to vote. GOTA, get out the Asian vote. Because just like it was 60% Democrat on the day of the midterms, November 8th, if you want the Democrats to win, that number's got to hold. That number's got to hold this coming Tuesday. It's important, not just for Georgia, but for the entire country. Okay, so, yeah, I think Sheng Tao is, I'm going to hopefully talk to her at some point. I like her story because it would have to be about 2005. I mean, she's from Stockton. She's a Hmong woman from Stockton. And I was a reporter in Stockton when she was a young girl there. I didn't know her, but I knew the community. I reported on the community. And I know how tough it was to be a Hmong woman. And when she talks about being homeless when she was 15 or 15 years ago, talks about getting her life together, graduating from UC Berkeley after attending a junior college and going, 2 years of community college and then to Berkeley. Here she is, the head of a major city, and an Asian American, an Asian American Hmong woman. We got to support her. I mean, she got in. Ranked choice voting helped. But in the end, let's see if ranked choice voting shows she has the coalition behind her to get things done. So as a former Oakland business owner, I'm rooting for her. And it's history to have been elected. But the history is really yet to be made for Sheng Tao. All right, we talked about the public schools. We talked about Georgia. Oh, this same-sex interracial marriage thing is interesting. They included interracial marriage. I mean, it's almost like they didn't have to, but someone realized, same sex. I mean, it's just marrying the person you love, whether it's by gender or it's by race. It's the same thing if there's discrimination. We can't have that. And we know by the Loving decision in 1967, Supreme Court, it really tossed out all the anti-interracial marriage laws. But this was an attempt to bring it all together in a bill. The bill's not, the Senate passed it. It's going to go to the House. It's not perfect in the sense that states can still do what they want. But to have Republicans, 12 Republicans, we checked that, to have them come together on this vote was really indicative of this new broad support by the American public. And Washington Post headline: Senate vote to protect same-sex marriage reflects long political shift. A bipartisan group of 61 senators, including 12 Republicans, voted for the measure. I mean, the Senate voted overwhelmingly for the Defense of Marriage Act 26 years ago. Hard to believe, huh? 26 years ago. And Republicans had this wedge issue that they would use for more than a decade, right? To divide Democrats. And then 8 years later, President Bush embraced a protection of marriage idea as a central focus of his 2004 election. And then now we see this movement, how just 26 years ago, a generation after the Defense of Marriage Act, how the Congress has moved. A bipartisan group of 61 senators signaled a near total upending of a once dominant political dynamics when they voted to nullify that 1996 law. The Respect for Marriage Act, once repassed by the House and signed by President Biden, will help protect recognition of same-sex marriages enforced by the U.S. Supreme Court's 2015 Obergefell versus Hodges ruling against future legal challenges. Like I said, it doesn't necessarily codify same-sex marriages, but because I believe it'll still allow states to do what they want. But this helps protect the recognition of same-sex marriages. The Supreme Court's 2015 Obergefell ruling stands, and one of the key things that shows how things have changed, even the Mormons, the Church of Latter-day Saints, they supported the religious liberty provisions in the bill. So you got 12 Republicans who voted for this. Let's see, they get their names because it was important. We had Cynthia Lummis, Republican of Wyoming. She had a 0 rating from the gay rights group, the Human Rights Campaign, during her time in the House. And Senator Dan Sullivan, who ran on banning same-sex marriage less than a decade ago. And now they were all coming together. They were redefining tolerance in America. And like I said, a lot of it is because people have gay, LGBTQ people in their lives. And if you have that, how can you not? I mean, really, how can you not support a bill that makes same-sex marriage, legal, or that supports same-sex marriage? So there was an interesting article, I can't find it now, by interesting article by I think her name was Liz Goodwin. Liz Goodwin, the Washington Post. And she talks about how the sausage was made and how, Liz Goodwin. She wrote about how it was a real effort to get the 12 people on board. It was led by Senator Tammy Baldwin. But to get 12 senators on board, she had to work starting in July. And she got Susan Collins of Maine, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, Rob Portman of Ohio, Tom Tillis of North Carolina. And, Baldwin, first openly gay U.S. senator, they said they would join her. But then they got others. Lummis was maybe the last from Wyoming. But in the end, it was a matter that it was personal, right? And when you see how the sausage is made, it's not just a bunch of people with their own views getting together talking. I mean, there's a lot of arm twisting, there's calling, there's Zoom meetings, there's phone calls, there's lunches. And then someone makes a decision that says, yes, I'm going to publicly come out for the Respect for Marriage Act. Or I'm going to come out for this Protection of Marriage Act. I mean, here's a statement by Portman. Portman, who was retiring and said it was impossible for him to imagine such a bill passing in the Senate just 10 years ago, called his son, who was in a same-sex marriage, to tell him the news. Portman said his son, who never pressures him to vote on anything, appreciated the, quote, significance of not just for him, but for the country and other couples. It was an important moment for our family as well, Portman said. So this is a big deal. And it was a big deal for me because when they added the interracial marriage part, no one disagrees on that. I mean, we've come to a stage where, thank goodness, a black-white couple, no one bats an eyelash, right? News about the Good Morning American anchors. We have Emil Rohrbach, who's white, with T.J. Holmes, who's black, African-American. They apparently had some kind of tryst. People were more concerned that they were both married, but apparently reports say that they got together after they separated. But, and maybe it was when Michael Strahan co-hosted with Kelly Ripa on that morning show. We start seeing that, and we start accepting. Oh, they're a black woman and black man and white woman. Now, the opposite isn't the same, black woman, white man. Although, as I said that, Serena Williams, black woman, famous, powerful, white male. You think about all the different spectrum, the spectrum in America. I think we're more open to interracial marriage, but for some reason, they made this part of the bill, which is important because it just reminded people about how broad and how important this issue was in the development of our country. And I say this to Asian Americans specifically because we know that there were specific laws that said whites and Asians could not marry. And it comes after people said whites and blacks could not marry. And then, of course, it was whites and Filipinos, specifically after Filipinos claimed that they weren't Orientals. They were Mongolians. And then they changed the law. Okay, we include you too, Filipinos. And we know this, and, a lot of us are impacted by this. Not by generations, but by a generation. I mean, my father lived in an era where if you were Filipino and seen with a white woman, you could be murdered. So this idea of the government saying who you can or can't be married to, it goes beyond gender, it goes into race, it's everything. And this bill now, bipartisan support. I mean, the mainstream talks about, oh, look how far America has changed. just over the last 10 years, over the last 25 years. Let's go back to the 1920s when Filipinos would get beaten up for being seen with a white woman. Let's go back to the 1890s when Chinese could not intermarry, when laws specifically banned interracial marriages. And just appreciate how far we've come. And appreciate that on some issues, we can get stuff done without the kind of rancor that we're used to. We get people coming together. That's the ideal. Same-sex marriage, interracial marriage, important vote. When the House votes on it and Biden signs it, just remember, it's a significant thing. It's an important thing. All right, that's it. I was going to talk about student loans. You know that the student loan idea got rejected by another court yesterday, and then the Department of Justice went right back to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has said it will rule on it, or it'll take it up. I don't know exactly what they'll do. They'll look at it, and then who knows? Maybe they'll just. I'm not sure exactly if it means they'll rule or if they will look at it and then say, no, we uphold the lower court. But that's going to be an issue. Let's see, checking the Washington Post. Supreme Court on Thursday announced it will expedite review of the legality of President Biden's plan to cancel federal student loan debt for millions of borrowers and hold oral arguments in February. All right, so it's February that they'll hear it. Oral arguments. Lower courts have put the program, which the administration said was justified by repayment problems amplified by the pandemic, on hold. The Biden administration asked the justices to either allow it to go forward while legal challenges continue or take up the issue themselves. It recently extended the pause on federal loan repayment, which was scheduled to expire at the end of the year, to give the High Court time to act. The plan will remain on hold as the court deferred action on the administration's request to restore it. So this is going to be an issue. I mean, it's already an issue, but it's going to be more of an issue. The more people kick it around and the more people see that forgiving student debt is important, especially for those, not just for those who borrowed, in the normal course of things, but there were schools that was the only reason they existed, to make loans. And students didn't get certifications on the things that they were looking for, and they got nothing except debt. We're talking about technical schools like Corinthian comes to mind. And that program was held up. So let's see how things progress and how this issue bubbles up, because this is going to be a real issue to divide the haves and have-nots. Because who takes out student loans? The middle class, the people who don't have the money to foot the bills for college. And the Republicans are going to try to make it a moral issue, like, oh, how can we forgive debt? We shouldn't be. They're just trying to protect the corporates who will be left with the bag, left holding the bag. Who's going to speak out for the middle class? Who's going to speak out for the people? That will be the big question. But that is an issue that's just breaking right now. breaking right now. Okay, tomorrow I'll talk about the AAJA has put out something. The Asian American Journalists. I'm a member of the Asian American Journalists. On local television news. And since I was on local television news, I will talk about it tomorrow. Hopefully we'll have, we haven't had Dan Gonzalez with us for a while. Maybe we'll have him come back. We'll see. We'll see. So that's it for today's show. Regular viewers, no. Viewers, or maybe you just listen. You listen to this on the replay. We come on live, 2 p.m. Pacific. If you're live, you can go on chat. You can say hello. If you don't want to go on chat, you can just sort of like listen. You can see if my internet's working. So you see, oh, he's wearing a different shirt today. Oh, he finally combed his hair. Oh, whatever. But yeah, we do this live because it's more dangerous this way. And we talk about the news like it really matters. You can see my columns on ALDEF, the Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund. That's ALDEF, AALDEF.org/blog. Also check it out on Inquirer.net. Also the Oakland Post. We do this, the micro talk show of the AAPI and the AAXs, because, WDAAAT, what does an Asian American think? Here it is, Emil Takeout. You get it right here. Don't forget, tonight, I say this because, if you're in the Bay Area, it's raining. It's not the best weather, but it might get better, might get drier, might be a little, gray, cold. But tonight, 7 p.m., Thursday, the Black Repertory Theater Group is showing a videoed reading of The Conductor, 7 o'clock tonight. It's a virtual reading of a play, a videoed virtual reading of the play by Ishmael Reed, inspired by the recent San Francisco School Board's recall of 3 board members. Check it out. Check it out live. And then the treat for those live will be a Q&A following the reading. Tonight only, available to the in-theater audience. I'll be there with Ishmael, his wife Carla, the director, Allison Collins, who is one of the school board members who was recalled. And we'll have a nice chat about art and life and public education. Maybe. No, it should be. It should be fun. Tickets are $17. Call the Black Repertory Theater. They're at 3201 Adeline Street, Berkeley. 3201 Adeline, yeah. You know that big street cuts through Shattuck. 510-652-2120. 510-652-2120. And if you're somewhere else in the country and you say, I can't fly in for your Q&A, Emil. Well, then catch it on Eventbrite. Call 510-652-2120, the theater, and get the link. Ticket $17. So that's Thursday. And if you miss tonight and say, look, I can't do it tonight. Well, Friday, 7 p.m. No Q&A, but you can get the live stream. Saturday, 7 p.m. And Sunday, 3 p.m. for Ishmael Reed's The Conductor, his new play. It's fun. And it's going to Broadway, or off-Broadway. And I'm going to be there for my small little part, because when am I going to get a chance to be off-Broadway again? So that should be fun. It's going off-Broadway in March. Exciting times. That talk show implement. You've heard that before. It's just a sounder. Hey, look, thank you for joining us. Check us out. Twitter, @Emil Amok. YouTube, @EmilAmok1. Emil Amok1 on YouTube. Live and recorded. Also on Facebook, fb.com/EmilGuillermo.media. Also, my website, amok.com. Now you know. You know. I like to meditate. I believe in meditation. Like I was saying, though, in yesterday's show, funny things can happen even when you meditate. You got to be careful. You can dissociate, they say. Some people are even triggered by going into a meditative state. And some people, mostly men, I found out, 18 to 25, look at meditation as a kind of macho thing. It's like TM isn't transcendental meditation. It's like TM is toxic male meditation. And it happens. I mean, there's some guys who think of meditation as weightlifting, and which I find is only in America, right? I mean, our modern day. But no, I like the old-fashioned way. I say the old-fashioned way, but I stand when I meditate. I don't sit on a cushion. I talk when I meditate. But I reflect. And we always end these shows, and you know, I might be meditating all throughout. All throughout this show, I meditate. All throughout the show, I'm in some kind of trance. But we always come back to loving kindness. The loving kindness, reflective meditation. Because it all boils down to self-love, self-preservation, self-care. But before you show it to yourself, it's best to show it to others first. Because then it comes back. Twofold, threefold, fourfold. It just comes back. And it just feels better. Cut through the shame. And show that you're worthy to be loved by showing others that they are worthy to be loved. By showing that love. And it does come back. And so, as I wish for me, I wish for you. May you be safe. May you be happy. May you be healthy. And may you live with ease. Emil Guillermo here. Back again tomorrow. Catch me tonight in Oakland. Or Berkeley if you can. 7 p.m. Black Repertory Group. Until then.